Back in the 90s, I had heard tales about historical wagon train re-rides from old-timers I'd met while working on a homestead ranch. Driving teams was a way of life for me then, so I was fascinated by the notion of using horse-drawn vehicles to get from point A to point B. But I feared I had missed the wagon. Then, in 2011, I found the Days of 76 Museum in Deadwood, South Dakota. The museum focuses on the era when stagecoaches, freight wagons, bullwhackers, and teamsters facilitated the overnight population explosion of Deadwood after gold was discovered there in 1876. Since 2008, the museum has been organizing re-rides along each of the 7 historic stage lines that brought people, supplies, and gold into and out of Deadwood in its heyday. I knew I had to get in on the action. I finally got my wish in 2013 when I joined the wagon train from Deadwood to Medora, North Dakota. I met some great folks, wonderful horses, and was grinning for 7 days straight. I performed in a town with a population of around 20, and we filled the fairgrounds with over 300 people that night. Naturally, I was hooked. By 2015, plans were set to follow the northern half of the Deadwood to Sidney, Nebraska Trail. Gordon and Lil Odell and Jim Emery, in conjunction with the Days of 76 Museum, took about a year and a half to map the trail and obtain the necessary easements from private landowners and the National Forest Service. About 75% of the 150-mile trail today crosses public lands, winding through the heart of the Black Hills. At times, following in the very ruts carved during the gold rush, the route was equally steeped in beauty and history. Wagon train veterans agreed on 2 things. It was going to be the roughest and the prettiest ride yet. The line to Sidney was a popular route back in its day. The journey was once a daring dash through hostile Indian territory, exclusively concerned with profit and efficiency.
It works out to about 30 hours. The driver would give out a hoop about a half a mile away, and they would have the horses harnessed and switched out in minutes. People didn't even have time to get off the stage.
Fortunately, our trip was a more leisurely one, averaging 20 miles a day. Accommodating 200 people and as many horses necessitated some amenities the old-timers didn't have. Now, at the end of each day, teamsters are shuttled back to retrieve their vehicles from the previous night's camp. There is always plenty to do at the end of the day, keeping the horses fed, watered, and well groomed to prevent injuries during the long, hard days of pulling. When the chores are done, folks convene for Dutch oven suppers, entertainment, and stories from gracious landowners who host us. Predictably, we sleep with the sun. Everyone is ready at 7 a.m. sharp when the wagon master's voice fills the camp. Wagons ho! Okay, we gotta go. 4-ups are common on wagon trains. I never realized how tricky it was handling 4 lines until I got a little lesson from Teamster Tim Nemec.
When I'm just driving in a straight line, I'm just nice, relaxed grip. But to shorten up my leaders, I hook my fingers over the front, or over the front set of lines, so that I can control them a little better.
Sometimes 2 drivers will share the duty. Kenny and Donna Bashand came up from their Oklahoma ranch to drive a replica of the original Deadwood stagecoach. Fortunately, the Bashands are doing their part to keep the Wild West in the wagon train.
Driving the Deadwood stage with my brother, and there's a gentleman on there with us from Chicago, and we were trotting, and he was a little bit white-knuckled already, and my brother elbows me, and he goes, "Should we open it up a little?" So I gathered my reins, and I'm ready. Off we went. We galloped. Told him that's what the real stagecoach ride was like. We had a little fun.
I was impressed by how many teamsters build their own wagons and have their own ideas about design.
It was simple, that it worked good, and the third one is that it looked good. And if you can capture those three elements, you've done what they did on all those beautiful vehicles that they did. I mean, everything worked right, and it looked good. Aesthetics was very important.
Pretty wasn't never bothered me not to be pretty. But you want it easy to get in, easy to get out, be able to fold it down, brakes, ride nice, and if it breaks, it falls apart, just back it in the shop and weld it back together.
In addition to the peaceful pace and ongoing beauty one experiences on the trail, I found a few prevalent themes that draw teamsters from across America to wagon trains in South Dakota.
My dad always loved horses. He always wanted a team of gray Percherons. So he bought this team of colts and he said, I got my team of grays, this is going to be the last team that I break. And then he passed away very suddenly. They're my boys and they're going to stay with me as long as they can.
So do you feel like your dad's with you on this trip?
I do. Every time we hitch them. I bet.
It's what we need to teach our children and our grandchildren.
It's important to relive the history.
The people.
The people.
The people you meet is the most important. But at 3.5 miles an hour, you don't miss a thing.
And we didn't. We made it to Deadwood with relatively few mishaps.
A few wrecks, but it's been pretty trouble-free. When I seen that the box was off, and then I rode around the corner, and they had just caught me.
And as everyone loaded up their teams and wagons to return to their respective lives, goodbyes were often replaced by, well, see you on the trail. For years, while I was farming with horses, I thought I was among the last of a dying breed. After leaving the ranch, I feared I might never pick up the lines again. I missed the pace on that old homestead. But now, I have learned that this subculture is in fact alive and well. Indeed, I believe it is actually on the rise. Amid the ever-increasing pace of life, there are still those who prefer traveling at 3.5 miles an hour. The teamsters I met along the trail have no intention of laying down their lines. As with any journey, the end is only the beginning. I can hardly wait until the next time I hear that familiar shout, "Wagons ho!"